So what we've got here is a DC brush motor from a 123 wagon. Same motor is used on 116, depending on the engine type. I think the 280 and the 126 I think uses these as well. Other variants like the 6.9 116 uses a larger version of this fan, but it's probably the same procedure to open it up. This one is completely dead. It's totally open circuit between the terminals here, and it does absolutely nothing in the car. And it's kind of squeaky as well. We're going to open this up and see if we can save it. It looks like an extremely high quality construction, so it would not surprise me if back in those days they actually made things that can be serviced. I mean, probably not officially by MB, but anyone with a bit of DIY skills can probably fix it. But I've never opened one of these before, so I can't say that with any authority. I assume this staked on nut here is going to need to be removed. There's just one of these tabs that's been staked upwards to stop that spinning off. And I assume the actual motor assembly with the windings in it, which is the rotating part, is just going to lift up. Obviously, we need to remove this basket first. I have no idea how to do that, but I'm sure it's not difficult. Hopefully, we can do that without breaking it. On the other side, we can see the windings of that outer housing that is spinning, and we can clearly see two brush holders here. That's obviously the other side of the lower bushing as well. So we'll clean that out as well. As for why it's dead, my money's going to be on the brushes are simply worn out. Probably there was a failure with this car and this fan was running constantly. Either a failure or some clown basically running it constantly to compensate for an overheating issue. Either way, that's not good for the fan. Eventually the brushes will wear out. It is completely dead in any position, so even when it's provided power and you spin it, there is never at any time any connection. It's just totally dead. I'm not sure if there's a resistor in here that could be burnt as well. We'll see that when we open it up. So this basket comes off by way of pulling these little pegs out of their holes around the perimeter. And how I did that is with this extremely cheap lock picking tool. Just wedged it in there, flexed it a bit, and then it popped right off. So now basket is removed. I'm going to go ahead and fold that stake down, this one here, and then spin this nut off and see if that allows the blade assembly to come off. Right, well that was extremely easy. Once those things are folded out the way, well there's only one, you just need a 20mm reasonably thin-walled socket. And this is a left-hand thread. You actually turn it in the opposite way that you think you should, i.e. in the tighten direction to actually get it to come off. And there's that piece that keeps it secure, and then the blade actually comes off. And now we can see the motor. So motor looks like we are going to need to undo these bolts, nuts and bolts, the three around the edge, to actually either get it off this frame or completely open it. We'll find out shortly. So there you have it. The motor is removed from the frame quite simply with those three nuts undone. There's the plastic blade, and there's the plastic basket that goes over the front. These two items I would be inclined to just throw in the dishwasher and see how good they come up. This might, if you're going for the concourse appearance and you can't get them anymore, might be worth having it sandblasted and powder coated. I guess it just depends how good this blade and basket come up after thorough cleaning, because it is plastic. It may never actually look nice, but anyway, we'll see how that goes. Next step is to open up this motor and see why it's dead. So there you go. It's actually ridiculously easy to open this thing up. There's the 3 bolts that hold the thing together. There's a front plate, and it looks like it's actually got ball bearings in there. Frickin' hell, you won't see motors made like that these days. Well, not that I'm aware of. Ridiculously high quality. You can see how the brushes are arranged. I've never seen that before, but then again, I've never opened up one of these slim DC brush motors. That's where the brushes make contact. There's nothing wrong with this. This is fine. That's not where the problem is. If you're paying attention, you can already see what the problem is. This thing has run hot, and this brush on the right is jammed down. Presumably the plastic housing that holds the brush is a little bit deformed. Yeah, so it's absolutely and utterly completely serviceable. You can fix this. Let's see if the damage to the plastic is catastrophic. I'm going to go ahead and say that this was actually a manufacturing defect, because there's like 90% of the brush material left. I think this thing failed when it was near new. The plastic seems to not quite be formed correctly on this side here, and it kind of binds up when it's right down the bottom. Whether that was caused by heat, I cannot say. But I might actually remove that brush and just clean up the plastic down in the bottom area so that doesn't get trapped again. That's all it was. So this motor will be fine. Rather than risking breaking the plastic housings for these, I'm just going to use the brush itself to clean up the wall. So I've loaded it up sideways and scraped it up and down several times, and it's moving completely and utterly smoothly and freely now. I'm just going to apply compressed air underneath those brushes just to make sure there's no junk under there that's going to bind it up again, and yeah, put it back together. I'll lube that rear sleeve bearing. People say you shouldn't do that, but screw it, it's squeaking, so I'm going to. Front one might try and get some oil into that ball bearing. So that's a sleeve bearing at the rear and a ball bearing at the front. Clean it up, put it back together, and we'll give it a test. So my only disappointment with this motor is that there is a bit of built-in obsolescence. That front ball bearing is not sealed, it's actually completely open. So water and dirt, etc. is going to eventually contaminate the grease in that front bearing, as is the case here. It sounds like, it sounds terrible, but basically I washed it out as best I could, and I've applied some ridiculously expensive, ridiculously high quality, high temperature grease in there that doesn't even melt at 120 degrees, so it's never going to melt basically in the normal car environment. And it's sounding pretty good. It's not perfect, but that ultimately is what's going to kill these motors. It's permanently attached in that front cover and cannot be replaced. Well, I shouldn't say cannot easily be. I'm sure some enterprising individual will remove these rivets around the edge of this front plate and put small nuts and bolts in there, and you probably could replace it. But if this motor is available separately, yeah, you just replace that and you can rebuild the fan motor. But this one is now perfect, so I will go ahead and put this back together and we'll give it a test under full load. Just with no load whatsoever at 12 volts, it's drawing about 6 amps. So this beast is quite an energy hog. Let's see what it does when it's actually moving air. So there we have it. It's by no means perfect, especially because of that front bearing. There is the occasional grain of sand you can hear getting crunched up in that, but hopefully with enough use that will turn into a paste. I have loaded it up to the absolute max with grease, so hopefully that front bearing will last as long as possible. These things don't run constantly, fortunately, and this car's probably not going to get much use anyway, so it's a good way to get a bit of extra life out of this fan. It's working perfectly now. I dare not run it at full power. This is only at 6 volts because it'll probably take off if I give it the full 12 volts, and it's just under 6 amps at the 6 volts that it's currently sitting at. Off camera I might run it at 12. I don't really have a way of holding the camera without probably chopping my fingers off at the same time running at 12 volts, so you'll just have to use your imagination that yes, it's frightening, but we'll see how it goes.